Betrayal isn't just about losing someone you love. It's about losing the version of yourself that believed they would never hurt you. I thought I had the perfect life. A loyal wife, a strong marriage, and a brother I could trust with anything. For 10 years, I built my world around them. I worked hard, loved deeply, and never doubted for a second that they were my family. But one night, everything changed. It started with a simple mistake. My wife left her phone unlocked. And in that moment, my entire life collapsed. Hundreds of messages, secret meetings, hotel reservations. My wife wasn't just cheating. She was cheating with my own brother, my blood, my family. For weeks, I lived in denial, drowning in anger and heartbreak. But then, I made a decision. I wouldn't just confront them. I wouldn't let them walk away without consequences. I was going to expose them, and I was going to do it in front of everyone. At my wife's biggest charity event, I walked onto that stage with a microphone in my hand and proof of their affair in my pocket. In front of hundreds of guests, I revealed every lie, every betrayal, every secret they thought they had buried. Gasps, shock, humiliation, my wife and brother's perfect little world destroyed in an instant. But revenge wasn't the end of my story. Because after everything, I had to learn how to do something I had forgotten how to do for years. Move on. The lie that shattered my life. Betrayal doesn't kill you, but it makes you wish it did. Because nothing hurts more than realizing the person you loved, the person you trusted with your whole heart, was lying to you the entire time. And when I found out the truth, I didn't just lose my wife, I lost my brother too. The perfect marriage. Or so I thought. For 10 years, I believed I had the perfect life. A loving wife, a strong marriage, a brother I could count on.
I was proud of what we had built.
I'd worked hard to give my wife everything she ever wanted. Support, security, love. I thought she was happy. I thought I was enough. But I was wrong. Because behind my back she was sleeping with my own brother, and I was the last one to know. The first sign that something was wrong. Looking back, I should have seen the signs. The late-night calls she never explained. The way she started locking her phone when she never used to before. The business trips that didn't make sense. But I was blind. Or maybe I just didn't want to believe that the woman I had built my life with was capable of destroying it. The truth didn't hit me all at once. It came in pieces, slowly unraveling until I couldn't ignore it anymore. And when I finally saw it, it ruined me. The night that changed everything. It was a Tuesday night. Just like any other. I'd just gotten home from work. Exhausted, but happy. I had big plans for the weekend. Plans to surprise my wife with something special. A romantic getaway. Just the two of us. Because despite the small doubts creeping into my mind, I wanted to believe that we were still okay. But that night, something felt off. She was distant, distracted. She barely looked at me, and when her phone buzzed, she flinched. I tried to ignore it. I told myself I was overthinking, but when she went to the shower, leaving her phone on the nightstand, and I saw the name flashing on the screen, my heart stopped. Incoming call. Jason. Jason! My brother. I stared at the screen, my hands shaking. Why was my brother calling my wife late at night? I wasn't the kind of man who checked his wife's phone. I wasn't insecure. I wasn't jealous. But something told me, check. So I did. And what I found destroyed me. The messages that broke my heart. There were hundreds of them. Text, photos, things I never should have seen. My wife telling my brother she missed him, that she couldn't wait to see him again, that I was too busy to notice anything, that she loved him. My own brother, the man I had grown up with, the man I had protected, helped, supported his whole life. And this was how he repaid me? By stealing my wife. I felt sick. My entire world shifted in that moment. I had been living a lie, and I was the last one to know. I put the phone down carefully. I could hear the water running in the shower. She had no idea what I had just seen. For a second, I thought about confronting her right then and there. But then another thought hit me. She had no idea I knew. And that meant I had the advantage, the plan for revenge. I could have screamed. I could have fought. I could have demanded answers. But none of that would have changed what they did to me. So instead, I started planning. I wasn't just going to confront them. I was going to expose them. And what better place to do it than at my wife's biggest event of the year? Because if she could lie to me in public, then she could be destroyed in public too. Betrayal changes you. It doesn't just break your heart. It shatters the person you used to be. The moment I saw those messages, I knew I would never be the same man again. But if my wife and my own brother thought they could walk all over me and get away with it, they had no idea what was coming, because I wasn't just going to confront them. I was going to destroy them, pretending everything was normal. After I saw the messages, I had two options. Lose control. Scream. Confront her right away. Stay calm, play dumb, and make them regret ever betraying me. I chose the second, because my wife had spent months lying to me. Now, it was my turn. That night, when she stepped out of the shower, she smiled at me like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just been texting my brother, telling him she missed him. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, drying her hair. I looked at her, my chest burning with anger. "Nothing. Just work." I forced a small smile. "We've both been busy lately. Maybe we should plan a trip soon." Her eyes widened, caught off guard. She wasn't expecting that. "Oh, yeah, that sounds nice." She hesitated, then kissed my cheek. "I love you, baby." I almost laughed, but I just kissed her back and whispered, "I love you too." The lie rolled off my tongue so easily. And for the first time I realized I was capable of playing this game too, gathering the evidence. Over the next few weeks, I became a man on a mission. If I was going to expose them, I needed proof. So I did what they never thought I would do. I started watching them, and what I found was worse than I imagined. The hotel receipts. One night when she was sleeping, I went through her purse. There it was, a hotel receipt from just last week. She had told me she was at a work meeting that night. Instead, she was in a hotel room with my brother. I took a picture of the receipt. Evidence? The secret calls. Next, I checked our phone bill. Hundreds of calls. Dozens of late-night conversations with his number. All while I was sleeping beside her. I printed the call logs. More evidence. The pictures that sealed their fate. But the final blow? That came when I followed her. One night, she told me she was going out with friends. I knew better. So I followed her. And sure enough, she wasn't with friends. She was with him. Holding hands, laughing, acting like they had nothing to hide. I took pictures. Every single one. Final evidence. They had no idea. They thought I was still the fool who trusted them. But soon, everyone was going to know the truth. The perfect plan for revenge. Now, all I needed was the perfect moment to expose them. And I didn't have to wait long. Because my wife's biggest career event was coming up. A charity gala she had been planning for months. A night where she would be surrounded by hundreds of people. Her friends. Her colleagues. Her family. A night where she wanted to shine. That's when I would tear her world apart. In front of everyone. Because if she was going to betray me in secret, then she deserved to be humiliated in public. And as I stared at the evidence in my hands, my heart steady, unshaken, I knew this wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about justice. Betrayal is like a slow poison. At first, you don't even realize it's there. But by the time you do, it's already inside you, spreading, killing everything it touches. That's what my wife and brother had done to me. They had poisoned my love, my trust, my life. But now it was my turn to show them what it feels like to have your world ripped apart. Because the night of the charity gala was coming, and I was going to make sure that it would be a night my wife would never forget. The calm before the storm. For the next week, I acted normal. I kissed her goodbye in the morning. I smiled at her when she talked about the event. I even helped her pick out a dress. She had no idea what was coming. Neither did Jason. My brother, the man who had shared my childhood, the man I had trusted more than anyone else in the world. A man who now deserved nothing but my wrath. I wondered how they would feel when the truth came out. Would they cry? Would they beg? Would they finally feel even a fraction of the pain I had been living with? I wasn't sure, but I knew one thing. They would never forget this night. The evidence is set. I spent days preparing everything. The photos of them at the hotel. The call logs proving their secret conversations. The receipts of their private meetings. I wasn't going to just expose them. I was going to make sure there was no way to deny it. And I had one final trick up my sleeve. I had found security footage from the hotel lobby. Clear as day. My wife. My brother. Walking in together. Hand in hand. They wouldn't be able to talk their way out of this one. The gala begins. The night of the event. My wife was glowing. She wore a stunning red dress. Her makeup perfect. She looked like the perfect wife. The woman I had once loved with everything I had. If only the people around us knew the truth. I smiled at her. Not because I loved her anymore, but because I knew that in just a few hours her entire world would come crashing down. She leaned in and whispered, "I love you, baby. Thank you for always supporting me." I almost laughed. Instead, I kissed her cheek and whispered back, "Anything for you, darling." She had no idea. Not yet. Jason's arrival. Then, Jason walked in, dressed in a sharp suit. acting as if he hadn't stolen my wife behind my back. He had no idea either. He thought this was just another night. Another night where he got away with his lies, his betrayal, his disgusting affair. But he was about to learn the hard way. Some sins don't stay buried. Some secrets come back to destroy you. The countdown to chaos. The room was full. Hundreds of people, including family, friends, colleagues. It was her night, her moment to shine. And I was about to set it all on fire. I stepped up to the stage, microphone in hand. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, smiling. "I want to take a moment to talk about love." I saw my wife's eyes soften. She thought this was going to be a romantic speech. She had no idea what was coming next. "Love is built on trust," I continued. "On loyalty. On the belief that the person standing beside you would never betray you." Jason stiffened in his seat. I saw my wife shift, suddenly looking nervous. Good. They should be. Because in the next few seconds, their whole world would change. The moment of truth. "Unfortunately," I said, my voice steady. "Sometimes, the people you trust the most are the ones who betray you in the worst ways." I turned to face my wife, my smile cold. "Sweetheart, would you join me on stage?" She hesitated, but she had no choice. She walked up, trying to hide her confusion. The audience was silent, waiting. Then I turned toward Jason. "And my dear brother," I said, my voice filled with venom. "Why don't you come up too?" Jason looked like he had just seen a ghost. "Why?" he stammered. I smirked. "Oh, don't worry. This is a family moment." I saw the sweat bead on his forehead. I turned back to the audience. "I want to share something special with all of you tonight." I lifted the remote in my hand, clicked the button, and on the giant projector screen behind me, the pictures appeared. The hotel footage, the texts, the proof of their disgusting affair. Gasps erupted from the crowd. Murmurs turned into shouts of disbelief. And my wife? She froze. Her eyes widened in horror. Jason stood completely still, his face draining of all color. This was it, their judgment day. And I was the one holding the gavel. Revenge isn't just about exposing the truth. It's about making sure the people who betrayed you never forget what they did. And as my wife and my brother stood frozen on stage, their dirty little secret broadcasted for everyone to see, I knew, Dash, they would never forget this night. Because this was the night they lost everything. Just like they made me lose everything. The silence before the storm. For a moment, no one moved. The crowd was completely still, eyes glued to the screen behind me. Images of my wife and Jason. Secret meetings, late-night texts, hotel footage. Proof of their affair. Then the whispers started, gasps. Murmurs of shock and disgust. Is this real? No way. His own brother. Jesus Christ. I watched my wife's face go pale. Her perfect red lipstick suddenly looking like a stain on a broken lie. Jason? He looked like a man who had just been sentenced to death. And I was the executioner. Her pathetic attempt at denial. This... My wife's voice cracked as she turned to me, eyes wide, pleading. This isn't what it looks like. I tilted my head. Oh, I said, my voice calm, controlled. So you weren't sneaking into a hotel with my brother. You weren't sending him "I miss you" texts while I was sleeping next to you. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. 'Cause there was nothing to say. She was caught. The whole room knew it. Jason finally spoke, stepping forward, his voice shaking. Listen, man. I swear it wasn't planned. It just happened. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. It just happened? I repeated. What exactly just happened, Jason? You tripped and landed in my wife's bed? The crowd erupted in shocked laughter, but my eyes never left his. He flinched, his jaw tightening. Because he knew there was no way out of this. The guests turned against them. I cannot believe this. My mother's voice suddenly rang out from the front row. My mother, the woman who had raised both of us. She stood up, her face filled with disgust and disappointment, staring at Jason like he was a stranger. You betrayed your own brother, she whispered, shaking her head. I didn't raise you like this, Jason. I didn't raise you to be this. Jason looked like he wanted to disappear. And my wife? She turned to her colleagues. The very people she had invited tonight to celebrate her success. But instead of admiration, she saw nothing but judgment. What a disgrace, someone muttered. She pretended to be so perfect. What a joke. I feel sick just looking at them. She turned back to me, eyes filling with desperation. Baby, please. I stepped back, holding up my hand. No, I said coldly. You don't get to call me that. You don't get to beg now. She reached for my arm, but I pulled away like her touch disgusted me, because it did. The final blow. I turned back to the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, ignoring my wife's sobs, I'd like to thank you all for coming tonight. I know this wasn't the kind of entertainment you were expecting, but hey, at least now you all know who she really is. I gestured toward Jason. And let's not forget my dear brother. I always thought blood was thicker than water. But I guess in this case, my wife's legs were open wider than family loyalty. The crowd burst into shocked gasps and laughter. Jason's face turned bright red, his hands curling into fists. You're enjoying this, aren't you? He hissed, stepping closer. I just smiled. You have no idea. Then I pulled something from my pocket. A manila envelope. Oh. And sweetheart, I said, turning back to my wife. She sniffled, mascara running down her face. What? She whispered. I tossed the envelope at her feet. Divorce papers. Her breath hitched. She looked down, hands shaking as she picked them up. No, she stammered. We can talk about this. No, we can't. I cut her off. I don't want to be married to a liar. I don't want to be married to someone who crawls into my brother's bed behind my back. Jason clenched his jaw. You don't have to humiliate her like this, he muttered. I laughed in his face. Oh, now you care about her dignity? Where was that when you were screwing her behind my back? He looked away, because we both knew the answer, leaving them in the ruins. I turned back to the microphone one last time. Enjoy the rest of your night, everyone. And with that, I walked off the stage. I didn't look back. Not when my wife collapsed to the floor in tears. Not when Jason stormed out like a coward. Not when the whispers filled the room like wildfire. Because I was done with them. They had spent months sneaking around behind my back. Now, they could face the world without me standing between them. And the consequences. The aftermath. The next morning, the videos from the event had already gone viral. The story of the husband who exposed his cheating wife at a charity gala was all over social media. People cheered for me. People mocked her. And Jason. Well, he lost everything. His reputation, his credibility. Even his job, fired for being involved in a scandal that made headlines. As for my wife, she begged me to take her back, called me, emailed me. She swore it was a mistake, that we could fix things. I never responded because there was nothing left to fix. She had already burned us to the ground, and now I was walking away from the ashes. For good. Betrayal cuts deep. But revenge leaves scars. On the betrayer and the betrayed. And as I watched the world turn against my wife and my brother, I realized I had won. But victory didn't feel like I thought it would. Because even though I had destroyed them, I still had to figure out how to rebuild myself. The fallout begins. By the next morning, the fallout was worse than I could have imagined. For them, at least. My wife's life falls apart. Her phone wouldn't stop blowing up. Her so-called friends? They turned their backs on her. Her colleagues, the same people she worked so hard to impress, they were ashamed to be associated with her. Her boss even called her into the office and said, "Given the circumstances, we believe it's best if you step away from your role." She was fired. Not because she cheated, but because she had been publicly exposed, and the company didn't want the bad press. And her reputation. Destroyed. Everywhere she went, people whispered about her. She wasn't the successful, respected woman she had once been. Now, she was the woman who betrayed her husband with his own brother. And no one wanted anything to do with her. Jason lost more than he expected. And my brother? He thought he could walk away from this unscathed. He thought he could hide. But the internet never forgets. The viral video of the event spread like wildfire. His boss saw it. His clients saw it. And suddenly, no one wanted to work with him anymore. Because if he could betray his own brother, what was stopping him from betraying anyone else? He was fired within a week. Then his girlfriend left him. The woman he had been dating before he started sneaking around with my wife. Yeah, turns out she had been watching from the sidelines. And when she found out the truth, she packed her bags and left him in the dust. Jason called me. Begged me to talk to him, to work things out. I let it go to voicemail. Because as far as I was concerned, he didn't exist anymore. Her pathetic attempt to get me back. A week after the gala, she showed up at my doorstep, eyes swollen from crying. "Please let me in," she begged. I didn't move. "Why?" I asked, my voice cold. She sniffled. I made a mistake." "A mistake?" "A mistake is forgetting to buy milk at the grocery store. A mistake is missing a phone call, cheating with my own brother." That That was a choice she made over and over again. You didn't make a mistake, I said, staring at her with nothing but disgust. You made a decision. She shook her head, stepping closer. We can fix this. I laughed, right in her face. Fix what? I asked. The marriage you killed. The trust you buried. The love you stomped on. She sobbed harder. I love you, she whispered. I tilted my head. Funny, I said. You didn't love me when you were sneaking into a hotel with my brother. Her face crumpled, and then, for the first time since this started, I felt nothing for her. Not love. Not hate. Not anger. Just nothing. Because she was nothing to me now. So I stepped back and said the two words that ended it all. Go home. Then I shut the door and locked it. Forever. Learning to live again. The next few weeks were strange. For so long, my life had revolved around her. Now, she was gone. And I had to figure out who I was without her. I started going to the gym again. I focused on work. I went out with old friends. The ones I had drifted away from when I was too busy being a devoted husband. And slowly, something happened. The pain? It got smaller. The anger. It started fading. And one day I woke up and realized I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living again. An unexpected encounter. One evening, I was at a coffee shop minding my own business when I heard a voice behind me. Haven't seen you around in a while. I turned. And there she was. Sophia, an old friend, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. She smiled at me, holding her coffee. Mind if I join you? She asked. For the first time in months, my heart didn't feel heavy. For the first time since everything happened, I looked at a woman and didn't feel betrayal, anger, or pain. Just curiosity. Hope. So I smiled. Yeah, I said, pulling out a chair. I'd like that. And just like that, I took my first step forward. The end of one chapter, the beginning of another. Betrayal changes you. It breaks you down, shatters everything you thought you knew, and forces you to start over. But here's the thing. Starting over isn't a punishment. It's a second chance. And as I sat across from Sophia at that coffee shop for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally free. Facing the past, embracing the future. I hadn't seen Sophia in years. We used to be close. Before life, work, and my marriage pulled me in a different direction. I heard about what happened, she said after we ordered our drinks. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, she smirked. Let's just say your little exposure event went viral. I chuckled, shaking my head. Not my best moment, but it had to be done. Sophia took a sip of her coffee, studying me. And now, she asked, what happens next? I leaned back in my chair, looking out the window at the city lights. For the first time in months, I didn't feel lost. I wasn't drowning in betrayal. I wasn't clinging to the past. I was just here, living. Now, I said, looking back at her with a small smile, now I move on. And I meant it. The last conversation with my brother. A few days later, I got a text from Jason. Jason, can we talk? Please? At first, I wanted to ignore him. He didn't deserve closure. But then I realized this wasn't about him, it was about me. So I agreed to meet him. The final words between us. Jason looked like hell when I saw him. Dark circles under his eyes. Guilt written all over his face. You wanted to talk, I said, crossing my arms. So talk. He took a deep breath. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, he said. You don't. I kept my voice steady. He swallowed hard. I don't even know why I did it, he admitted. I was selfish, stupid. I ruined everything. I stared at him for a long moment. And then I said something that even surprised me. You didn't ruin everything. He frowned. I didn't. I shook my head. Number you ruined yourself. He flinched. You were my brother, Jason. And you threw it all away for what? A few nights with a woman who never loved you the way I did? He looked down, unable to meet my eyes. I miss you, man, he whispered. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. I miss who I thought you were. And that was the truth. The brother I loved, he didn't exist anymore. Jason had killed him the moment he chose betrayal over loyalty. I'm moving on, Jason, I said, standing up. You should too, but not with me. I turned to leave. He didn't stop me, because we both knew this was the last time we'd ever speak again. Her last attempt to get me back. A week later, my ex-wife tried one more time. I was walking to my car when she appeared, tears in her eyes. Please, she whispered. Just hear me out. I sighed. What do you want? I want us back, she said desperately. I know I messed up, but we can fix this. We were happy once, weren't we? I stared at her, completely unmoved. No, we weren't, I said. She froze. What? If we were happy, I said, my voice calm, you wouldn't have cheated. Her face crumpled. It was a mistake, she whispered. I shook my head. No, it was a decision. She reached for me, but I stepped back. We're done, I said firmly. We've been done. You just didn't realize it until now. And with that, I got in my car and drove away from her forever, the real victory. Revenge doesn't heal you. It feels good for a moment. But real healing, that comes from moving forward. I lost a wife. I lost a brother. But I found myself again. And that was worth more than anything I lost. One last coffee with Sophia. A month later, Sophia and I met again. This time it wasn't by chance. It was on purpose. So, she said, smiling at me across the table. Tell me the truth. Do you feel free? I thought about it for a moment. The pain was gone. The anger was fading. And for the first time, I wasn't just living in the past. I was excited for the future. I grinned. Yeah, I said. I feel free. She smiled back. Good, she said. Then let's celebrate that. I raised my coffee mug, and as we toasted to new beginnings, I realized this wasn't the end of my story. It was just the beginning. The end